Hey, what's up? I'm Mike Squires. This is Couchers Podcast, episode number 137 of my guest, Taylor Locke. Taylor Locke is the former guitarist of Rooney. He's a singer, songwriter, producer, engineer, studio owner, operator. Um, he recently put out a solo EP called The Bitter End. I put that out in October of 2020, depending on when you're watching this, very recently, a couple months ago. It's full of sugary pop songs that you will love. His studio is called Velveteen Laboratory, and it is full service. You could track drums, track full band in there. And I learned that he is a part of a Fleetwood Mac tribute band, and he has a comedy musical called "Don't Stop: The Story of Fleetwood Mac." And uh, when I feel comfortable flying again, I'm gonna fly to LA and go see this show. Looks amazing, sounds amazing. I had a great time getting to know him, talking to him a bit, and I'm looking forward to making a Couchers video with him as well. So look forward to that. Keep your eyes peeled. Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying Couchers Podcast, please do consider supporting us at Patreon, patreon.com/Couchers. That's the only place where you can download the audio for all of the cover songs that we do. There's a bunch of other stuff. You get some early sneak peeks there, all that other jazz, exclusive merch. So thank you to everyone who supports Couch there and anywhere, and just for listening. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. Thank you also to our friends and our strong supporters, River City Guitars. You can give River City Guitars a call. River City Cars. You know, Bobby. You know, he's a car guy as well. So that's what that slip's about. But River City Guitars is into just vintage, used, and cool, generally cool stuff. Check out rivercityguitars.com. Check out at River City Guitars social media stuff. They post stuff there before it even has a chance to hit the website. It gets sold. So follow them on social media. If you've got something that's collecting dust and you want to have some cash instead of that, give Bobby a call. Tell him Squire sent you. You know, we're close, and he's gonna treat you right. You know, whatever it is that you're sitting on, it should be getting played, not just collecting dust. Give these guys a call, 509-818-7693, or drop them an email at sales.rivercityguitars@gmail. Maybe include a picture of what you're trying to sell. That would help. And tell them Squire sent you. That'll help. And don't forget the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated, and do your best to just not be an asshole. You know, it's not that hard.
Hello.
There you go. Now I
Cool.
got you.
Awesome.
You can hear me okay?
Yeah, totally. Oh, let me record on my end, of course.
Is this your home studio I'm seeing?
Yeah.
The
control room on the other side is the live room.
I really got to get my shit together.
Look, yours looks cool.
I mean, if I scroll this way, you'll just see the frozen white wasteland that is the outside of the farmland. That it's like 20 degrees outside.
That sounds nice. It's raining in LA, which is unusual.
But I bet it's a, when it does, it's probably a pretty welcome event.
It is.
Yeah. How you doing, man?
No time to say. Good, really good. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Dude, thanks for making time. I appreciate it.
What's the fire down in the corner? Is that real? What is that?
No, that's a little heater. Check this out.
Cool.
There's my little dog. He posts up, like, he puts his butt all the way up on that thing. He's a couple of inches away now, but sometimes I'll roll in and he'll be butted right up on it. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Do you record all your stuff right here in your space?
It's a proper 2-room studio. On the other side of this is a live room. But yeah, I do everything in here. I'm
How
in
are
a
we
little
situated in your house? Are we in the basement? Are we in a garage?
separate structure. So my
Oh,
house,
nice.
there was a 2.5 car garage with a kind of an A-frame vaulted ceiling when
Uh-huh.
I bought the house, which became my live room, and then this side was new construction. I built a control room,
Oh,
so it's
nice.
isolated, floating floor, the whole nine.
Uh, this, I think right now we're in the process of trying to figure out if it would be more cost effective or smart to build something on our property here or to buy a separate like commercial building.
I mean, there's so much cool stuff you can do these days with like modal houses or those like shipping containers. I don't know what the permitting is like there, but in California, you can drop um, a prefab kind of thing next to your house.
Really?
You could keep that as a control room and run cable and have, just build like a drum room or something. But I don't know what kind of stuff you're doing. But for me here, even before the pandemic, so much stuff is computer driven, and it's like, I don't know, for me, like generationally, my age, I feel like I'm right in the middle of people who are either complaining that I don't have a tape machine,
Right.
or they're baffled that there's anything more than a MIDI controller. They don't know what anything made of wood is, like a drum set or a piano.
Right.
They've seen wooden instruments, and then the other half of the clients are like, you know, you're not gonna edit that in the computer, are you? I kind of fall right between.
You're like, yes, I am.
Yeah,
And it's going to be great.
yeah, trust me, you want me to.
How old are you?
36.
36. You're just a
Yeah,
kid.
yeah, I feel like a kid. I have a kid now, so that makes me feel less like a kid.
That came this year.
Yeah,
Well,
so
how
4 months old.
let's start the line of questioning with that.
Okay. Um,
Uh how did I mean when did this come?
she was born just over 4 months ago, September 22nd, and I gotta say, um, even with like mask wearing protocols and stuff like that, I still feel pretty lucky because the silver lining is like, first of all, I have friends who have older kids. Do you have kids?
No.
Okay, so friends who have older kids, schools being closed is a big fucking deal. There's
It's a problem. Yeah.
developmental stuff socially and educationally that's like gonna be a tricky one, whatever the fallout of that is when this is over. And I'm just glad we didn't have a kid like 2 or 3 years ago where they're at the age where they need to see other kids and do stuff.
Right.
Also, being quarantined like most of my wife's pregnancy was, it was basically training. It was like, all right, so this is what cooking and not eating out is like. This is what trying to drink less looks like. This is what getting up earlier looks like. It was, the whole thing was like forced
It's like boot
preparation.
camp.
Yeah, and then now in the first few postpartum months, it's not like we're missing out on things like, oh, our friends who don't have kids are going to this or that, and we're stuck home with our baby. It's like there's nothing. It's great. It's like forced paternity leave, and the work that I do have is right here on our property anyway.
That's great.
It's been I mean, I don't want to say it's been awesome because it's fucking terrible what's going on, but in my tiny little slice of the universe, it's, knock on wood, it's been fine for my wife and baby and I.
It's interesting because not everyone, but most people that I talk to for the podcast, even though this year has sucked because a lot of them had plans to tour, most of them have made the best of it. Not that many people that I've talked to have suffered the worst of what the
Yeah.
last year has dished up to a lot of people.
I mean, it started off for me, on the road and finding out the news that just sort of the very beginning of it in March, and to be extra cautious, it was our first pregnancy and everything. My wife and I decided when I got off the road to quarantine from each other for 2 weeks. And
In March.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So she went to her folks' place north of LA, and I hadn't had 2 weeks alone in my house and my studio like ever. And so I started pulling out because the past 5 or 6 years I've been really producing and songwriting and touring for other people's projects. And I started like going on Instagram live and doing like live looping, like running around playing different instruments and going through hard drives of half finished songs or unfinished songs or ideas for songs or songs I wrote for another artist, but they didn't use them. And then was just
Asshole.
like, what if I spend 2 weeks like getting together the record that I could have or should have made many, many times over like 6 years. And then my manager, who really works with me for producing and songwriting, we had never really even had a conversation about me releasing my own stuff, was really into it. So I put out a little EP. So in some ways, being forced into that quarantine got me back doing my thing again.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Like you pivoted quickly and made the best of it.
Yeah. I mean, and it doesn't take a pandemic to have to be able to pivot in the music industry.
That's right.
Like you and I briefly talked on the phone about our mutual friend Keith Nelson. I really relate to that kind of story because when I was 26, 10 years ago, it was like guitar player in a band was kind of the whole identity. That was the thing.
Right.
Guitar, do a little bit of singing, a little bit of songwriting, but really I'm a band guy and a guitar player. And the writing on the wall was kind of like, well, learn how to engineer, learn how to produce, get the writing chops better, get the singing chops better, see if you can get decent on a second or third instrument. And because if you need to pivot into producing or writing for someone else or just engineering, or someone needs something done cheap and I can't bring in session guys, so I'm going to play drums or keys, or being able to just kind of stack the skills so it's not just single-minded like rock guitar dude has kept me out of looking for work outside the music industry.
Right. Uh well, I mean, it's good that you don't have a stubborn attitude about it, because I think a lot of people would be like, fuck that. I'm not gonna learn how to I'm not gonna play bass on someone's record, or I'm not gonna try to work on my paradiddles or whatever
Right,
you know.
right. It's more like computer stuff. It's like, all right, I need to be really fast on Pro Tools, or else I'm just not going to be able to do stuff. I don't have the luxury of not of having someone else do it. There was a producer named John Fields, who was kind of my mentor character, and he did one of the records of my old band, and he was the most self-sufficient music maker of any kind I'd ever been around. It was sort of like, and this is back in a major with when there's budgets for rentals and assistants and all this. But even then, he was like, "Yeah, why? It's not a luxury. It actually just slows you down.
Right.
I don't need 15 snares. I have three, and I know what they sound like, and I keep them in good shape. And I don't need a Pro Tools operator because I'm a whiz on Pro Tools, and that's just going to slow me down." Um, and so he taught me that kind of thing. Also, having a studio, because back in I caught the tail end of the 90s or mid 90s through late 90s, and it was very much the um, rehearse pre-production, then go to a fancy studio to do drums for a week or 2 weeks or whatever.
Right.
And then when I met John, he was like, yeah, what if you're on day 32 of a record, like doing some keyboard overdub, and then everyone's like, we should change that kick drum pattern. Let's put new drums on this. Like you should be able to do anything at any time. So
Right.
focusing on like a song bottom up or top down, however you want to look at it, as opposed to all of the drums for a whole album, just sort of set me on a path to at least have enough gear to support having a dedicated chain for things, so it's not
So
like a breakdown and setup time.
so it was like 2008 or 2009 when you decided, okay, I need to start building a studio, or were you already
Yeah,
doing some stuff at home?
I I had little home studio setups. Yeah, when did I? 2011, I built this place.
Do you have a
Um,
little cornerstone over there that's engraved? That's
yeah, well, actually, the guy who I worked with who designed it, he kind of sprung it on me long after we'd finished. He's like, I need to drop something by. We hadn't spoken in months. He's like, I'm like, okay. And he brought this little plaque.
oh,
And
nice.
I'm like, yeah, of course you can have this plaque up. You designed this joint. It's great. So, and it says, designed, his name's Rob Mound. His company's called Sound and Structure. Studio designed by Rob Mound, built by Sound and Structure for Taylor Locke, winter 2011. That's his plaque up there. So I
Nice.
never have to remember the date. It's right there. But I built it and I still was timid about how to like put myself out there as a producer. So it started out as kind of a rental income situation, like a timeshare with a couple other producers.
Right.
Um, and I would just sort of hang around them, watching them work in my space, and then I would use the spare time to do stuff, and then it just kind of developed into producing.
That was a good bit of forethought.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, self-sufficient is the way things had been heading since I started, and even before being on a major label, I kind of coming up like in the grunge era, like even though I was on a major, I had been like groomed in a DIY kind of upbringing, like putting on shows as a teenager.
Where
Like
did you grow up at?
here in LA.
You did.
Yeah, yeah,
Where at?
in Santa Monica. Yeah. But I kind of liked doing everything. I liked stenciling my own cases and, calling up promoters and booking club shows myself and making flyers and all that. I really came from, dubbing your own cassette demos and all that. I was
Right.
consumed by every aspect of like, bands and music that there wasn't a part of it I didn't like.
Did you just, I mean, I'm trying to do the math here. You probably didn't have a lot of day gigs before you got signed. Your band got signed early on.
Out of high school.
What's that?
Out of high school, senior year.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. We were all from LA. We formed in high school. We're not all the same year. I was the young guy in the band, so they were a little more into like adult world.
It
Um,
seemed a lot like it then, right?
yeah, yeah, oh, now, yeah, totally. Now it's, I mean, my best friend in the world is the former drummer of that band, and we're several years apart. He has two kids who are older. It's no difference now, really. But when he was coming over to band practice at my parents' house when I was 16 or 15, and he was like a man who had like, been to college and seen the world. It was
Right.
funny then. But yeah, we had record offers because the irony about a high school band is like, it's actually kind of easy to fill clubs because you just tell everyone at school.
Right.
And just that's the thing to do is go see the band from your school. And then if like my band members went to different schools, so and we happened to be in LA, and so you could play at clubs that were like famous. People are like, how'd you play there? It's like, we just sent over a demo, called them up, booked a
Right.
show.
Yeah,
Like,
anyone can get a Tuesday night.
yeah, exactly. So we were playing those clubs and had label interest and signed with Geffen, and we were going to make our record with Rick Ocasek, and we spent about a bunch of time with him pre-production. Went to his place in New York. We played CBGBs. He came to see us, and the deal fell apart. And our the producer we had made demos with that got us signed was Keith Forsey, the Billy Idol producer.
Yeah.
And everybody was kind of like, why did we even deviate in the first place? Keith sort of, those demos are what got us signed. So the Rick thing sort of, I mean, Rick Ocasek's amazing and passed away pretty recently, and a uh, hugely influential to me and most people in rock and roll.
Yeah.
But that when that was getting weird, it was like, of course we should have just used Keith all along.
Where were
Um,
you guys planning to record at? At Electric Lady or up in?
yeah, because that's Rick's go-to. We never made it that far. We did some rehearsing at SIR in New York. Um, but he was, I mean, there's so many different types of producers, you know.
Right.
And one of the things I feel like I draw from now is a lot of record producers who started out as producers and didn't come from bands. Like most producers don't know how other producers work, because it's like, why would you know, why would the guy who designs one part of an airplane know what the other guy does who
Right.
designs? Um,
Yeah, I guess
so
if you were never in a band and never worked with a producer, you'd have no idea of what a.
yeah, so Keith Forsey, Rick Ocasek, John Fields, and three or four others have been produced by a lot of people and kind of assembled my toolkit from that. But Rick is definitely what you'd call like a vibe guy, overarching guy. He's sort of like, you just play better because he's in the room, because you want to impress him. You don't want to,
Yeah.
you know, first of all, you behave better as a band. You don't want to do anything petty, you know, in front of Rick Ocasek, and you don't want to play anything less than your best in front of them. But he wasn't getting into like tempos or keys or sounds or anything like that. It's not that kind of style. It's not really Keith's thing either. There's so many different uh, personality types.
That's crazy. Rick, he wasn't about sounds. He was more about
Well,
parts
like I said,
and
we never
arrangement.
to the studio. Maybe he just sort of entrusts an engineer, but when we rehearsed, he was never like, "Oh, we'll do that on this kind of synth or this kind of guitar." He was kind of just like, are there extra parts in the song that don't need to be there? Can we
Right.
trim that? Are the lyrics in the second verse as good as the first verse? Is everything kind of cool? He just kind of hung around. He doodled a lot. He would draw, and I think you could still smoke indoors. Then he smoked and drew in a notebook, and
Right.
he was just only really said positive things. He just smiled like, "That's cool. That's a really cool part. That sounds good. You guys, that arrangement's really, that's together. That's ready."
I mean, I
So
guess, back when pre-production used to have, I mean, do people, this is an incredibly naive question, but is
people,
pre-production still a thing?
I don't know why you would, other than to just, I guess I would just more like demo review, not pre-production like band practice. I don't see why you would do that now. For my approach, I definitely selfishly think the better I know the songs, the more I can offer. So
Right.
living with demos and maybe sitting around going through things in sort of an unplugged kind of casual way, just to sort of look under the hood of the songs. I like that, but like going to play for 5 hours a day to make sure like the bass parts are right. Like why would you just do it on the day, you know?
I think, I mean, what I love about records changes from record to record. I feel like I love a really slick, like ear candy produced record.
Yeah,
Like I love Cars records,
yeah,
you know. Um, but then I also love really rough, obviously live tracked albums. And I, maybe some musicians are just so good that there's never, they know not to overplay, which is obviously the thing everyone has to work around, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't overplay, but also play but when you don't overplay, make sure you're playing the right perfect notes.
Yeah. Right. Well, one thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is how um, coming up, you spend a lot of time trying to sound pro, but
Right.
now it's so easy that trying to like leave the kind of warts and all style you're talking about, like where it's obviously live. What if it's you're fooled? What if it's you think it's obviously live, but it's put together to sound that way? You know, like if you're using room mics in a certain way, and even like things like chatter or like asides or like something that happens before the song starts, like you could definitely like curate all that now and have
Copy
like
and paste it into a track and
totally. You could put a count off on a song. I mean, I've done it. I did this on it. I played every instrument. It's a one man band. There's no way it was live. And why would it need to be counted off? Because there's a click track. But
right.
I counted because it like seemed like part of the vocal performance. It sounded cool.
Yeah.
And I counted in every take I sang. I think I may have comped my count off. Oh, like
That's
so
great.
the three sounds pretty sexy in take four. I should use
That's amazing. No, I mean, I guess, yeah, technology,
yeah.
I guess at the end of the day, it's just the vibe, right?
Yeah, and I mean I like what you said because I agree. I like Steve Albini and I also like Mutt Lange.
Right.
See, you know, and
Yeah. Oh yeah.
they're both awesome and they're both ridiculous. They're both so extreme, you
I've
know.
never watched that. Um, I've never watched that the full series that I feel like a real boob right now.
That
Uh,
Albini.
Grohl did
Oh,
with
Sound City. Oh, with
different
different lasers.
where he traveled around to the different cities and
Right.
visited studios, right?
Yeah. I mean, Albini is so set in his ways. It would be fun if like I had the right project or right band to go do something at his studio. But I mean, he's a guy who wants his credit to say recorded by instead of produced by because he doesn't believe in production. He believes it's like it's like the record making equivalent of a documentary. You're there to capture what already exists, not
Right.
to create something from nothing, you know.
I had this discussion recently, and I only have ears, and they're not that great. I don't have a lot of the vocabulary, but a friend and I were talking about Albini's drum sounds, and I think from memory, and like the Jesus Lizard Goat album is one of my favorite records. It's incredible. But the snare sound on that isn't all that much different than the Pixies snare sound. And like in the moment of that conversation, I was like, oh, that's one of the most distinctive
Right,
elements of his vibe is the snare sound.
right. I'm sure he would have some argumentative comeback about how because I
Well,
don't
he
think
would about anything, right?
I don't think he wants to be pegged with having any particular sound. He's there to capture best whatever you bring. But I mean, how can you avoid? You can only avoid trends or like the times that you are living and working in so much. I mean, if a roomier drum sound or a brighter short snare reverb, if it's like fully ubiquitous and across many different subgenres of rock, you're gonna fall into it because that's just sort of what's going on around you. He can't even Steve Albini can't say like, you know, he stands in a vacuum doing his thing completely influenced by anything, you know.
What a madman, though.
But his shit sounds great.
Yeah,
Sounds
yeah, I think so.
and you know what I think In Utero does it's very, very hard to knock Nevermind from a songwriting point of view. But sonically, I think In Utero is less dated and stands test of time better. It sounds great.
I don't mind any of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
What
you
are
know
you gonna say about those two records? That's
about any of their records, and the thing is, and it's
yeah,
because the performances are all fucking great, right? I mean, a Guided by Voices record, I don't love all of them, but um I at least like most of them.
you have to be a fan. They're not inviting sounding.
No, they're not.
You know,
That's
like
a very diplomatic way
it's a
of
little
saying
bit,
it.
as I said in the email about Sunny Day Real Estate's ladies clear the dance floor.
Yeah, that's right.
And, if I'm on a drive with my wife and I have an opportunity to maybe play her something she hasn't heard before, if it's a short drive, we're not starting with Guided by Voices because it
Probably not, right?
takes some time. Um, but In Utero, I think it's a great example of a record having a rawness, but doesn't defeat the beauty of the melodies and the songwriting. It works with it.
Right.
Where a Guided by Voices thing, I think the production is there to deliberately um, suppress any like prettiness in his writing. It's almost working against type. It's like my good like Pete Townsend 60s pop melody that's in this song, you have to work to fucking hear it because I want to like mash it and fuck it up because
I
that's
mean, isn't a lot of I mean, some of that stuff is recorded on 4-track or 8-track or something, right?
and then when they came here to LA and did a record with Rob Schnapp, it sounds kind of like Nevermind. It's strange hearing them in high fidelity, you know.
Right. Did did Rick do Isolation Drills? Do I have that right? Do you know?
I think he did well, Schnapp did one after Rick. The one with Glad Girls on it is Rob Schnapp.
Oh, it is.
That's Isolation
That's
Drills?
Isolation Drills.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's Rob. That's
Wow.
Rob. Yeah.
No, it sounds great. And it's so weird because I can imagine it on a 4-track.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be a fun project to re-record all of those songs
That's
on the
great.
4-track, like relatively poorly executed. Just
57s.
like, yeah, yeah, everything. Kick drum, everything.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the theme of all recording these days is like I said before, like trying to be pro, like sounding pro is between inexpensive and free now. I mean, if you're Billie Eilish is the biggest pop star and like how much gear was used to make that record? Maybe a nice pair of headphones or something. Like anybody who has a born after a certain year, their first laptop they got has GarageBand on it, and those
Right.
samples are the same samples. They probably went to like the snare drum that comes in GarageBand. Apple, or whoever was contracted to make their samples, probably went to Blackbird in Nashville, had all the mics, the console, fucking drum doctor with the rentals. It's probably like 7 figures spent to capture those. There's like $1 million.
What an investment, though. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. So now I think it's like people blending shitty sounds and polished sounds seems to be the name of the game. Like if everything just sounds like beautifully recorded, I think we're like desensitized to it. It's like boring somehow.
I think the only Billie Eilish song that I've heard is her Beatles cover.
Right, right.
I'm pretty out of touch. Is it good?
I don't I'm also not in touch with that kind of thing, but I think it's funny that now that they're as big as it gets and the world is their oyster, like if the whole process of crafting that kind of music is sample driven and MIDI and in the computer, like what I guess that's you get to spend all your money on something else then, because what are you
Right.
going to get? Like, okay, the best Mac computer and a good microphone Now what do you do with all the other millions? You're not going to get. It's like,
Has
you
she
know,
put a second record out yet?
I don't think so. Her brother, who produces this stuff,
Yeah.
um, bought a house near me. I know which house it is, and I know that there's not like I couldn't trade houses with him. I wouldn't have enough space to record real instruments, and I'm doing
Right.
nothing. And he's the biggest pop producer there is, but he
Right.
just is like a corner bedroom with a computer in it.
It's I mean, it's interesting because they could go the other route and go into a studio and maybe things would be more watered down and
Yeah,
it would
yeah,
have a bad influence on whatever made her stuff appealing to so many people.
yeah, totally, totally. I know a drummer who plays with Lord since the beginning, since she broke, and I mean she's apparently a very, very crafty drum programmer, and putting together the fake drums on her records is a big part of her skill and talent and her statement. And this dude can play anything. He's a fucking great drummer. But he enjoys the gig, the mixture of electronics and bringing the program stuff to life on stage. It's not like just hitting the space bar and then just sort of playing
Right.
along.
Living in LA, you have access to so many amazing musicians. I mean, there's Nashville, New York, and LA, and they all kind of, although Nashville and LA are sort of the lines are blurred a little bit. They're more similar than New York and the other two
Yeah,
places.
you think so?
I think so. I think there are more studios in Nashville and LA than in New York because it's,
Mhm.
you know, it's hard. It's hard to track drums in New York, man, unless you go to a money spot, you know?
But are you talking about like independently owned studios?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But you're out. You have some space around you, right? You're not
Yeah,
like
we don't live we're upstate or up in the Hudson Valley up near Hudson.
you could put together you could record drums outside if it wasn't snowing. You can. I
Oh,
mean,
sure. No, I mean we're gonna do a thing here for sure. The
yeah,
we live in the same town as I mean I don't know their music. I emailed the guy when I first moved here, that band The National. Do you know that band?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
One of the guys, one of the brothers lives just a couple miles away.
You're not near Woodstock, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, you are.
We're on the other side of the river.
Okay. Carl, the leader of the New Pornographers, is up there as well. He has a cool place, I think, kind of near the Bearsville. Is there a theater space that
Yeah.
still has the Bearsville name? Yeah, I think he's near that. Good friend of mine's the drummer in the New Pornographers. Latter Day joined a few years ago, and they started one tour from that barn theater, uh, the Levon Helm space. What's it called?
Oh, it's called Levon
Yeah,
Helms.
yeah. They
Have you
started.
ever been there?
No, no.
Dude, it's
Their
fucking
first
magic.
show was there, and there were no other shows booked for a week. So they booked it as their rehearsal place and just played in the barn for a week and then had the gig and then got on the bus. I mean,
Did he tell you about it?
yeah, you sat down at like the house kit,
Yeah,
and
dude.
the tech was like, those heads haven't been changed since Levon was alive. And he's like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna stop playing these now. I better not be the guy who went through the snare head.
Or whatever blows it out.
Yeah.
It is. I've seen a couple shows there, and it's an incredible place. I mean, it's set way back off of a road that is just tree lined. It's deep in the woods. You
Yeah.
drive down this, gravel road, and you're like, what the hell is this? And it just boom, it opens up, and here's this barn, and
Yeah.
they have vendors around, and you know the first time I went there, and it's such a cool place, and the people who are working, everything about it is great. I showed up there to meet a friend, and they were like, hey man, you got a ticket? It was very West Coast, and it's something that you don't see here very often. they're like, "Hey man, you got a ticket?" And I was like, "Well, I'm meeting someone here and he's got my ticket." And they're like, "Well, come on in."
Uh,
Okay.
there's
I'll
a,
do that. Great, thanks.
that sounds like I don't know if you've ever been out here, McCabe's guitar shop in Santa Monica. It's like an old folky hang,
I've heard about it.
old Martins, and it always smells like coffee. And there's just like old dudes with like white ponytails, like who know how to like do real Martin repairs, like bracing and shit. You know,
Right.
is that T-shirt Satellite Amps?
That's right.
Do you know I've been following their whole lawsuit with the Epiphone coronet because I play a coronet.
Yeah.
I have a 63 or 4 coronet, and I really admired the Satellite dudes coronets, and now I guess they're out of biz.
Well, they're not out of biz. They're just not making that anymore. It just wasn't it wasn't something that was a sustainable fight for him. Like if those guys wanted to take him to court, that would have sunk him. But he makes great amps.
Yeah, yeah.
I got this little thing here is like a 3-watt combo. I run it through the aux, and it's
Oh, cool.
sounds huge, you know.
He also is he the guy who remakes the White?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. Those are amazing.
Adam, he makes great amps. You should check him out.
I know the group of LA dudes who kind of like blew up the prices of the White, and a couple of producers and session guys who knew about him, and now they used to be like a few $100. No one knew what they were.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny how one person mentions something in an interview and the price will.
Oh, I know. I shouldn't talk about coronets. They're a lot cheaper than juniors.
That's right. That's right.
Were you still doing tour stuff before COVID?
No, man, I got a day gig. I'm here. I'm in, I've got roots planted here. So, I mean, I miss it sometimes,
Yeah.
but
When was the last time you were on a long run?
oh, it's been years. I mean,
Yeah.
8 years.
Yeah.
Since and those long runs, when I was playing with Duff, we would go for 3 weeks.
Yeah, those kind of gigs, when you're working with somebody like that who has some autonomy and has already been around the block a few times, and that's really cool. I have friends who have gigs where they don't work that much or that hard, but they get just the right amount of the fun of the road without being totally disruptive to having a life at home.
Once I had that gig, I knew for sure that I never wanted to start something from the ground up again. Because it's just, how much work is it?
Oh, I know.
It's all the work. And,
Totally.
It's an uphill battle.
What kind of gigs were those then? What were you guys doing?
We were doing festival, like, we played Download Festival, which is Donington, right, and Hellfest and Escena and, these things.
Yeah.
And then we did a couple of good opening tours. We toured with Motorhead.
Cool.
In Germany, which was great. And we toured all over Europe with Motley Crue, which was surprisingly fun.
Is it all everybody cleaned up kind of vibe now?
Not
Lemmy.
Oh, the Motley Crue guys were on their best behavior. Tommy was still tearing it up. They had us in a dressing room far away from everyone else, and he was next to us because he had like a full PA in his dressing room, and he would DJ after. It was a pretty funny time, but they were all so sweet and nice to us. It was really gratifying to my inner 7th grader.
Yeah. What about Lemmy?
You didn't see a lot of him. He hung in his own room and played his like slot game, his pachinko machine, and you know, came out and crushed it every night. Was
Yeah.
was cool, but just wasn't hanging,
Yeah.
But Phil is a good hang. That
It's a,
guy's he's a real comedian. You said
I
you
got, oh, go on.
you were touring until March.
Well, okay. So a couple of years ago, I went out with Sparks, kind of like art rock band, 70s band. It's two brothers, Ron and Russell, who are in their late 60s, early 70s now, and they're still huge in Europe and Japan, and had just signed their first like major label deal in a while and had a new record. And it was all young LA dudes, friends of mine. We all knew each other, and some friends of mine had played with them once before and got me in it. And that was really awesome because that's kind of like what you're talking about, doing those festivals and like cool theaters in Europe. And it was like, it was just a good blend of like having fun, but it was also like adults. It wasn't like the total fucking crazy horse shit of like trying to, you're not like, we knew where we are staying. We're on the bus and everything, and there's catering, and there's like, you're
You're trying
not,
to figure out whose house you were going to stay at
yeah,
after the
you're
gig, and
not
like,
in,
oh, where's Jimmy?
right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That was really fun. The gig I was out on, yeah, this is a weird one. We could this will lead us somewhere very new. I started many years ago now. What I wanted to do was write a musical about Fleetwood Mac and do a show about Stevie and Lindsay joining the band and sort of focus on the 70s and 80s. And I know nothing about theater. I don't know about how to write a play, I didn't know how you direct a play, I didn't know how you get the rights, how to promote it, nothing. Inadvertently, I realized if you took away the play and just looked and sounded exactly like Fleetwood Mac, that if you're young enough and sound right and look right, that the tribute band world is like a music industry hack where all of a sudden
Oh yes.
it only takes a few months to develop a circuit of high paying gigs. And so we started doing that, and it kept going. We all have subs, so we can pick or choose as many or as few gigs as we want to do. Um, and it just kept growing and growing. Like when I had the Sparks gig, someone else took my role in the Fleetwood Mac show, and 6 months later, I came back, and the guarantees have gone up another big chunk, and I can slot right back into it. But then here in LA, I wanted to try again with the play. So at Largo Theater in West Hollywood, we started putting it on monthly as a residency. There's 15 people in the show. We built sets like, by ourselves, like from fucking Home Depot, wigs, costume changes, sound effects cues. We got different like comedians to be the narrator, and it became like this resident show in LA. And there were some Live Nation and AEG people sniffing around. There was a Broadway agent sniffing around. We started having these meetings that felt like, wow, this could really be something. And talking about taking it on the road, talking about going to New York or Chicago. And basically, there's too much legal stuff with the real band, and it just never really took off, although it still might. But
The licensing side of the music.
yes, because when if you just play a cover song, as you know, just the venue has to like report that it was played there. It's nothing. When songs are used in a narrative context and you're telling the story of the people who wrote the songs, it's in another category of rights that have to be licensed. So anyway, in between doing the play here in town at a theater who doesn't care, where it's just sort of under the radar. And by the way, they know about it. They don't, I mean, they
Right.
don't care either. It's more like lawyers who would
Of
care.
course.
But we still go out as much or as little as we want doing the tribute thing, because it's like, if I'm have a light month and I'm not recording anything, and there's a couple of gigs in Arizona at a big casino, Just fly in and out of Burbank right here with a guitar with the costume packed in the case. There's no management commission. There's no merch to be printed and sold and carried in a fucking duffel bag. There's like, I mean, I've never been in a band before where the promoter hands you a check in the dressing room and one guy in the band who's like the treasurer splits out the 5 checks like that weekend while you're still out on the road, like take home my fifth of the show,
Right.
like hit my account like a day after the gig, and it doesn't have to be used for printing merch for the next run or saving some fucking, it's fun. That part is fun.
What so the idea for the musical play came first.
Yes.
And then was the band existing? And
So we kind of weren't sure what we were up against with the play, but we made sure to cast people who we thought were not just like who you would find in a typical cover band. We got a good cast of people together, and even in the tribute band iteration, we do a lot of banter. Like I'm sure you've seen or at least heard of they used to be called Metal School, Steel Panther.
yeah.
We're kind of like this, the Steel Panther of like the 70s soft rock saga. Like it's all, you know, dirty jokes on stage and all that.
Right.
But the real thing with the play is like, scripted scenes and everything. But that's so much more ambitious. So that just lives
Are the
here.
dirty jokes that you guys are lofting around on stage, the banter, is it about the well documented inner band relationships then?
Totally. Yeah, we play up all of that. And then go off script because we'll be out there doing casino gigs or private parties or whatever. And I think audience members get off on the commitment because it's not like it's the right gear, it's the right costumes, it's the, singing in the voice character. It's like really close. It's really, meticulous.
How many Coke jokes do you guys get to bust out a night?
As many as we want. In the play version, we have a scene where there's a really fun scene where it's the 1977 Grammy Awards, and we win and enter from the back of the theater as if we're at the Grammys, and Mick spills Coke all over the podium at the.
Right.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of Coke jokes, all of them, whenever possible.
And so you're doing the Lindsay part.
Yeah.
That's a bunch of I mean, he's a very underrated guitar player.
He is, and he's coming from not the same place that any of my other guitar heroes who I would have naturally tried to emulate come from. Even his tone, he's weird. He's sort of against all the norms. Again, like somebody like Keith or me or you who is like into classic vintage, like good gear and good tones and all that. Like he's into subverting any obvious like classic sound, like a lot of DI shit. He loves plugging into a board, like Prince is that kind of guy too. But he loves even acoustic guitar with some shitty pickup in it when you could just as soon put a beautiful microphone in front of it. He'll plug it into a cheap board and EQ it so like the most obnoxious frequencies of the guitar have been boosted, and he just likes weird things.
There are a lot of famous recordings that if you really sit down and listen to them critically, don't sound good. And I'm including Prince.
Sure.
I'm including that acoustic Alice in Chains record that is like that is huge, and like the acoustic guitar sound drives me fucking crazy, and you can't turn a radio on, a classic rock radio, without hearing it. And I never bothered to really listen to it until recently, like critically, because it was a new record when I was in my 20s. It was just like, oh, a popular thing, it's everywhere, and you just accept it for what it is.
Kid brain. When something gets your kid brain, it's awesome no matter what. It's like the Sunny Day Real Estate thing. Like if I had not heard Seven in my kid brain, I would not be getting into it now.
No. And also the tempo's all over the fucking place.
Yeah, a lot of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, learning Lindsay's parts was really challenging, and it's fun to go deep, like to learn the record, then YouTube him playing it live in the ear it on the tour for that record.
Right.
Then a few years later, now he's played it live 200 times. He's even deviating from his own parts a little bit, and then see how he does it now, 20 years later. And then now that I've done the gig for several years, because sometimes I'll hear a Fleetwood Mac song in the grocery store and be like, I'm not really playing that exactly right. But you know what? I have license to because I started by learning it exactly right. And I'm playing it how he would play it like
Right.
a few years after it came out.
Before you started studying for this gig,
Yeah.
how were your finger picking skills?
None.
Really?
None. It was brutal. And
Then you're a fucking maniac for taking that on.
yeah, it forced me to put the pick down. And for a while I was just sort of flailing and cheating. But there's only a couple of songs where you get him down and then you work the whole thing out, because his playing, there's sort of two sides of it. One is what you're talking about, what he's known for, which is a great hardcore finger picker. But then when he plays leads, the absence of the pick is just sort of because he doesn't have one. When he plays single line solos, he just sort of thrashes anyway. But a really interesting thing happened regarding his finger picking, which is a woman who was a guitar player in his solo band in the 90s came to the play, and I met her and I was like, look, there's one person who knows where I'm bluffing and taking some shortcuts on certain things here tonight, and that's you. So anyone else I say like, yeah, I'm kind of cheating, I didn't really play right. They're like, no man, you were awesome. But I'm like, no, listen, I'm doing it while singing and acting and had a few drinks and I'm in a fucking clown wig. Like there's definitely a few parts where like I don't have the pinky going. I'm doing it with, or not even the ring finger. I'm pulling it off with three fingers, but it's a four-finger pattern.
Right.
And she clocked it. She called me and she's like, yeah, there's like, two. So there's Never Going Back Again and Big Love, where let me just show you how he does it and pretend you're like a kid. Like, let's slow it down to a metronome, like guitar lesson style. I won't charge you anything. I did it with him for 5 years on the road. You can ask me for funny stories and gossip and shit, but I love what you're doing. You have all the electric stuff down, but these two songs, like, you're telling me you're taking shortcuts, and I know I'm not going to wash your balls about it. It's true, you are. So let me show you what he does. And
And
I
so
went.
she took you to school.
Yeah, I had a lesson with her. I went over to her place. I hadn't had a guitar lesson since, not even high, like junior high. And we slowed those two songs way down and tried to get, my ring finger involved. And I just didn't, I got there, but when it got back into battlefield conditions of also singing and acting and the adrenaline of all that, it just didn't happen. I was able to play it correctly at home, but never on stage.
Right.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about Fleetwood Mac,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it would be a shame if, and I have to assume that you're a Mike Campbell fan.
Oh yeah.
Did you go see them on that tour?
I did. I did. And
How was that?
it was interesting. I would have, if there had been a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers tribute band, I could have slotted into the Campbell slot, no rehearsal. That's like my playbook. That's what I
Right.
would that's what I would come naturally to me. So this was the opposite. I thought it was weird, and I love Mike Campbell so much, but it goes to show that bands are bands because of a particular chemistry. And a lot of the time, I must say, it felt like an overlay, like Fleetwood Mac featuring the guitar stylings of Mike Campbell on top. I didn't feel that he um, was owning the Lindsay parts and making them. I mean, it's a tall order. Play the iconic parts from the record that 30,000 people want to hear.
Right.
Don't play them as an imitator. You're not in the Fleetwood Mac tribute band. You're in Fleetwood Mac.
Right.
You're not. They didn't go with an anonymous dude who stands in the back riser in a black turtleneck. They obviously went with a guy who has his own pedigree. So you have to
That they
bring.
have musical history with,
Yes,
or that.
exactly. So you have to bring your Mike Campbellness to it. So I think it was a tough gig because how do you honor Lindsay's parts but honor your own sound and your own way of doing things? And
Did they also have Neil Finn?
yes, yes,
I mean, they replaced him with two
you
people.
got it, yes. And I'm a huge Crowded House guy, and that was probably the more upsetting part to me is that he was really underutilized because Fleetwood Mac has always been about the collective of having the songs from Stevie, Christine, and Lindsay. And obviously, the Fleetwood Mac band name is what's on the ticket. So you're not going to turn into a 1/3 Crowded House show. But Neil did Don't Dream It's Over, which was great. So why not drop a couple of the like really boring extended blues jams from the set and have them do like two more or one more, or it just seemed like a missed opportunity to not hear a little bit more of Neil's stuff, even though he's there to sing the Lindsay songs. It's again, you didn't hire. It's not like Queen going out with a, a Freddie Mercury tribute guy, what they originally had before they got Adam Lambert.
Is that right?
Yeah, they had a guy they saw on YouTube, or also Journey did that, right? They saw a guy on YouTube who sounded just like
Right.
Steve. If Fleetwood Mac wanted to just have the Lindsay alike, they should have called me. You know, I could imitate Lindsay for a living.
Well, you were
But
going to get the gig because you're Three Fingers Jimmy.
yeah, exactly. For them, I would have gotten the fourth finger going. But if you're going to get Mike Campbell and Neil Finn, let them be Mike Campbell and Neil Finn. They're so great in
Right.
their own way.
I didn't see it. I didn't see it, but I have a friend who swears that Stevie had some tracks working that she wasn't singing everything, and he's a pretty sensitive guy. He's a good friend of mine, and he's like, I started crying. It's like I started crying because he was heartbroken. He was just like that voice is gone.
Yeah, tracks also auxiliary players that outnumber principal band members. Like it takes so much. Maybe it's like it diffuses any tension that the band members have. It's like the Beatles story of like, oh, have Billy Preston sit in on keyboard. Everybody will like be on their best behavior if there's an outsider here. I think
Right.
maybe we don't want to. The core members. It maintains an air of professionalism if there's like 7 other people at rehearsal playing with them. You know.
What a fun gig. Have you considered doing a Tom Petty one also? I mean, if you've
Yeah.
got one that is crushing,
Yes.
I
know.
mean,
I definitely know the tribute world inside and out now. You got to pick bands that there aren't too many of them of. We've played co-bills with a couple of different Heartbreakers ones, and I never came across the right guy for a Tom, like a blonde guy who can really play guitar and is the right build, because there's only so much like with costumes and makeup and stuff. Like you want somebody whose starting point is at least sort of like the right size and shape.
right.
That it's a big part of it. But that'd be a good one because there's just so many good songs. I'm always amazed when we do like a tribute fest and there'll be, like a Huey Lewis tribute band, and that's great and nothing against them. But after you do the 2 or 3 hits, what does the rest of that hour look like?
Happy to be stuck with you.
What's that?
Happy to be stuck with you.
Yeah, right. So if you want to, there's really if you want to make money as a tribute band, it's very, very easy. Pick a band that has a lot of known material, like an hour's worth, and then get people that look like them and sound like them, and you're done. Throw up a Facebook page and start booking gigs.
The thing that I've fantasized about doing for a long time now is not a specific band, but have like a classic album band
Oh yeah,
where
great.
you pick a classic album, you rehearse it for a few months, and then you have a residency, like a seasonal residency where you
Awesome.
go
That's
knock
great.
it out, like one album plus, selected greatest hits, and that's it. Could be one season Van Halen, Fair Warning. Next season, what the fuck do I know? Could be Tears for Fears,
Sure.
songs from the Big Chair. Although there's only 3 good songs on that album, but it's the
Uh,
best, one of the best sounding albums of all time.
my next move before I'd have a second tribute band is to be a tribute band Svengali and invent one and cast it and then send them out and like own a percentage of it.
That's the gag.
There's a band I produce, young guys from Denver, Colorado. They're all like 21. They're called the Midnight Club. They're really into glam. They could do like a T-Rexy thing, but their singer is a blonde kid that looks like Daryl Hall, and their guitar player has dark brown curly hair and looks like Oates. And that band has an hour of hits. And if
Oh,
if
you bet.
if we took the press shot where it's like no spare no details, like they look like Hall and Oates in their prime, make some backing tracks, get the rest of the band together and rehearse up. I'll rehearse them right here in my studio. Uh, get an hour set going. I'll go to the first few gigs. I'll fucking mix live sound, check them into the hotel, tour manage them, whatever. And then, all right, guys, you're on your own and and take a piece of the pie for it. That's the move.
Here's a slice of the future for you. And this is another stupid idea that I have. This is, although your idea is great, almost all my ideas start as a stupid joke and then I follow through with it, unfortunately. Kids band.
Yep.
Because look, trends are trends, right? But guess what? Screwing and having kids isn't going out of style.
Yep.
People are having kids forever till there's no more people. And as long as there's kids, people are going to need something to distract their kids with.
Yep.
And here's the gag: 3-chord Ramones style songs. I want to tie my shoes. I don't want to miss school, take me to the potty, whatever. Basically Ramon style songs. You start with a subject and then bing, bang, boom, the song's done in 5, as long as the song is. That's how long it takes to write it. You dress up as stuffed animals. You dress up like teddy bears or whatever, like little shit that little kids like. And then guess what? You just make 10 costumes, 10 sets, and you have a Northeast crew, you have a Southeast crew, you have a Texas crew, and then you just book the gigs. And
totally.
You don't even have to show up anymore.
The kids band The Wiggles, apparently the dude who invented it in Australia hasn't gone on the road in years. Just makes a fortune. It's franchised out like that.
Genius.
That rules.
Someone does this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
no, it's not kid. Yeah, you mean children's music. It's not kids in the band.
Right.
Because the other thing is, I could do at my studio like a real slicked up version of kids music class, where instead of just sitting in a circle with tambourines, like put little kid bands together,
Right.
Get the GoPro cameras going, record them playing their song, fix them up in Pro Tools and make a little edit. Everyone's got a video of their kid band rocking.
This, Ah, showbiz.
Think about this. If you're in a touring kid band, the gigs are at like noon. Think about a road schedule. Sound checks at like fucking 9 in the morning.
Do you remember that? Do you remember the band from Boston, the Del Fuegos?
Yeah, yeah.
That guy, I don't remember his name right now. Dan something, the singer. Dan, whatever his name is, became a children's entertainer, and
I've
he didn't dress up in costumes. He didn't do anything like he got rid of his replacement's hairdo and got a regular dad haircut, and he toured around the country without a tour manager. He had his whole rig is just full of merch,
right.
and he traveled around and sold out the Paramounts and the Moore theaters and everywhere, a matinee show and an afternoon show, 2 shows a day.
And where am I going out to dinner? What's the best fucking restaurant in town? Instead of it's midnight, can we get pizza delivered to the bus? Because
right, because that's the only thing available.
Yeah. Speaking of Seattle, the guy from the band Presidents of the United States of America became a children's singer as well.
Chris Ballou.
Yeah.
I worked for them.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I worked for those guys.
Oh, what'd you do?
I was a really terrible stage manager.
No way.
I did a couple tours with them. Yeah. They're good friends of mine.
When it was when that record was big, when it was happening?
No. But Jason, their drummer, and I were in a pop rock band together, like a power pop band.
What band was that?
We were called Nevada Bachelors.
Cool.
Yeah. We were into, we were into Guided by Voices, but we were more into Supergrass.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm more into Supergrass than anything.
Yeah.
I also thought you were going to say Super Drag, who I'm also doing.
I love Super Drag.
Yeah.
What is that guy doing, John?
I heard he was doing Christian music for a while.
Yeah.
I don't know that they didn't hang on after their initial. Well, actually, they did hang on after their initial wave of success, but I don't know what it.
In the Valley of Dying Stars is like that album is dynamite, but really, huh?
Really, you're gonna say Head Trip in every key.
Head Trip in every key. That is a perfect pop album.
Yeah.
Everything about it is perfect. The sounds are fucking dynamite. Yeah. The songs are perfect. It's dark.
Into them.
Oh.
I saw them at the Troubadour in LA. I remember everything about it. He played a hammer through a super reverb, and he had a rat pedal. And I had a rat, but I thought that rats were like teenager pedals and that pros didn't have rats.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, that guy uses a rat. That's awesome.
Right. No, a pro would have a Maxon or something at that point, right?
Yeah, right. Totally. And bands were still loud then too, like a super reverb cranked up when you're at a club. It's loud.
That's louder than anything.
That keeps changing and changing. Stage volume is like what used to be trying to be on the right side of history and be conservative with it, it's like that's out the window now. It's like rolling with a Princeton and people are, can you turn that around or put a baffle in front of it? It's like, how much, where do I go?
You have an attenuator for that?
Exactly. Like I can play a champ. I don't know where to go from here. Should I get one of these something digital, a simulator type thing? I don't know.
So when you fly in and do the casino gigs with the Fleetwood Mac band, you use a backline amp?
Oh yeah. So this is what we do. Ned, the drummer, will be happy to have this shared on the podcast. He has a bit he always does about the bell curve of giving a fuck about gear in your life as a musician.
Yeah.
And when you start, you have nothing, and it's a piece of shit that doesn't stay in tune, and you don't have a case for it, and you don't know how to coil your cables, and everything's a fucking mess.
And you don't have a pedal board, and you set it all up and chain it together.
And you get into it, and then you get too into it. Then you have some money, maybe you have some endorsements. You're spending too much time on the internet, and you have a new rig for every tour, and you're running out of storage space, and everything has to be just so. And if it's not, you could be really thrown off your game and upset that your rig wasn't right. Then you get enough hours clocked where you go back to like, give me anything. Give me anything.
Right.
We started it, the tribute band, I would like try to get on the phone with the backline company or at least email or something. And then now I'm like, Fender. I'm like, what kind? I'm like, I don't know, a Fender. Like, okay. Or if they don't have a Fender, not a Fender. Just an amp. Let me just see what it is. I'll work with whatever you got.
Get it. Yeah.
It's almost like a point of pride. Like, throw me a curveball. Give me a line 6 fucking Spider
Right.
with an Ethernet jack on it or something crazy. Like, how
You don't even show up with a pedal board.
Yeah, I got this Sans amp thing that's terrible that I started doing it with a real pedal board, and I would try to get like a deluxe reverb. And then I went down to this Sans amp thing that has like a boost and a delay and a volume
Fly
pedal.
rig.
Yeah, fly rig.
Yeah.
Delay is good on it. The clean boost is good on it. Then the main overdrive is not. And then a volume pedal because Lindsay does swells, and I have the mini junior volume pedal.
Yeah.
The fly rig, it was like, it's pretty stinky. It's not good sounding, but
Right.
it's so small. But now I think in the pandemic, being like, instead of trying to like shit that gig up as a point of pride of just having a bad attitude, like, oh, I can do this with any amp and this piece of shit. I think I do, like, when we come out of this, if I go back to that gig, I got to get some kind of small pedal board together that's a step back up, not to my full Road Dog.
Just get a little Helix.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, exactly.
You know, get the. You don't even have to get the Helix amp modeler if you have a decent, like whatever, Blues fucking Junior or Blues Deluxe. Totally perfect for any gig, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That little Helix HX, it's like this big. It's like 6x8, maybe.
You know what's weird though? Some tribute bands who have gone really deep into programming of tones, that kind of thing. The thing that's weird is if you're covering a band's catalog of many, many years, if you try to nail each tone perfectly, that's not what the real band would do on stage because they just play their current gear. And some of the programmed guys, the sounds are so radically contrasting from song to song that the sound guy you can't even really find them in the mix sometimes because their overall like curve of their sound is like, a moving target in the mix. So instead of just adding delay or adding gain or whatever, it's like the sound has a whole other shape to it all of a sudden. So
the Helix thing, they make one that's just effects and not amp models.
Yeah.
So if you just want like some overdrives and a boost and some reverb and it's fucking great. You don't have to fuck with anything else. Plug it in. Do you travel with an acoustic guitar too, or is that backlined?
No, backline.
You're just like, give me something with a pickup.
Yes. Yeah.
You're like, what? You want a Taylor? Taylor, Breed Love, fucking whatever. Don't care. Yeah. Really?
Totally. We played in Hawaii, like big show, packed. I plugged into, it was a Marshall JCM 900, and I plugged into the effects return, which bypasses the preamp of the amp. So the little Sans amp on my fly rig was sort of the preamp into the power section of the JCM 900. It's like, great, fine. Yeah. I mean, it probably wasn't the best sound ever, but some of the guys with Helixes don't have that good of a sound either.
Right.
Maybe I should start bringing Rockman.
Dude, I had one of those in the 80s. It's a pretty good time. Yeah. Are you using that for its chorus? Because, man.
Yeah. I use it for everything. I love it.
Really?
I'll use it when we do in the Brian Adams track.
I'm going to have to beep that out.
Yeah. Rockman's great. I had it like refurbished and everything.
What?
I sent it to a guy in Chicago who like knows about Rockman. Like cleans it
He's
up,
the
makes sure it's
foremost rock
right.
man specialist.
Yeah, oh yeah, he is. There's a community. He has like one other guy who he competes with.
Really?
And yeah, because then I found out about
You
this
find him on Reddit? What? How do you find this guy?
4chan. It's ridiculous. This thing is called the Nobles, and it was like a German company who did a Rockman but pro style, like it's metal instead of plastic. And you know how in the Rockman you can kill the chorus or kill the delay, but not both.
Right.
This you have dry, and it like collapses down to mono properly. It's like a
Right.
pro Rockman.
Well, look, Tom would never do. Tom would never do that.
No,
That's why the Rockman doesn't offer that option. You want to sound killer all the time.
true. You shouldn't be able to turn it off. It's awesome. Yeah,
When you held that up, at first I thought it was one of those killer. I think it's called Noble. Is it the guy that makes the bass preamp?
oh yeah, yeah. I think it's probably a different Noble.
I
Yes,
want
it
one of
is
these
spelled
fucking.
differently. Yeah, yeah. Those are great. Those are awesome. Those are
Adam
very.
at Satellite makes something like a tube bass preamp with an XLR out. I need to just pull the trigger.
Do you? Are you? No, you're not. You're not a bass player by trade, are you?
Well, I am a lot lately because that's what I end up doing on these tracks a lot.
Yeah.
I'm learning a Pino Palladino bass line right now. And it's,
Right.
I mean, up until 3 minutes before we started, I mean, that bass right there, I converted to fretless to learn this song.
Wow.
And then just when I added it to the playlist, that playlist I sent you.
Mm-hmm.
So just forecasting that eventually someone was going to pick that song.
Right.
And fucking nobody ever picked it. So I had to force it on some people.
Right.
And so now I'm, I've been forced into the position of learning this thing. And every once, I'll play along to the track. I sound killer. Then I get the stems and I fucking just kill everything. And I'm just playing along. And it's like, ooh, that's a little weak right there. And then as I'm practicing, I start recording myself. And I know this fucking song inside and out now. Like I can play the whole song just to the drums, like, because I know the arrangement. So now I'm playing along to that to test my intonation. I mute everything except for the drums and me, play, and then plug everything back in. And I'm like, oof.
Wow.
That's because it's all fretless.
Yeah. Not for the faint of heart.
What a fucking animal Pino is.
I know. I know. I saw him right after John Entwistle died play a Who gig.
Dude, he just flew in and crushed it.
Yeah, totally. He probably like charted the songs on the plane not without a bass in hand. Just probably like listened and made a few notes.
I have this, I'm making a solo record and I have this ridiculous notion that I'm gonna hire him to play on a song.
Right.
And I kind of feel like I know that it will cost a lot of money.
Fuck it. I mean, that's the thing about session guys. They're not they still just want to work. They're not like household names, you know?
I
Like
mean,
a friend of mine knows Stevie Nicks well and invited me to a rehearsal for her solo tour, and Waddy Wattell's in the band. Now Stevie's not somebody you just approach because, she's earned her privacy. But Waddy, I'm like, I'm gonna go talk to Waddy. My friend who brought me is like, really? Just gonna walk up to him? I'm like, yeah, it's Waddy. Just a fucking guitar dude. He's never been on the cover of a magazine. He's just a fucking guitar dude. It's like, hey, Waddy, you sound great. Is that the same Les Paul you were playing last year in the, or is that, did you add that Bigsby on there, or is that different Les Paul you got? And they're like, what? You just walked up to Waddy and talked to him? I'm like, yeah, he's not Stevie Nicks. He's just a dude.
right.
So I can get Pino's email address. Say, what's your rate to play on this?
I got his manager's number.
He'll do it.
I just, I got to start saving.
I mean, how much could he be for his day rate? I don't know.
I mean, I think he's about $5,000 a track.
Oh my God, that's a level I don't know. I don't know those kind of guys.
Yeah, me neither.
Wow.
But you know, uh,
What era were you at with the presidents, and what did that look
oh,
like?
it was like 2004.
Why are you a bad stage manager? What did you do to
Well,
do
I
better?
wasn't, I mean, I'm a sober guy now, but I was not sober then. And
Okay.
I mean, as far as with those guys, I did, I got the job done. I got the gear up on stage. Here's the thing. They had a fucking 2-string bass and a 3-string guitar and very minimal rigs, Eh, really what they needed is someone to take care of the drums. And that is not I can't tune a drum. And so poor Jason was just, if we didn't have history and had been in a band together and been friends for so long, I really probably wouldn't have even lasted the first tour because I pulled a couple of drinking stunts that would have got anyone fired, I think.
Right.
Yeah. But
I heard on the deluxe version of that album, there's demos
oh yeah.
in the lump that's like halftime and down an octave. It's pretty awesome.
They were a whole, I mean, I've never heard of a more organic success story. They were just like clowning they had a weekly gig at this bar that didn't even really have gigs. I mean, I think they built this, I might be making this part up, but I swear it's true. They might have built a stage in this club because their weekly was doing so well. But it's in Lower Queen Anne, and it just kind of was happening. The line was going around the block. They made that record, and boom,
Wow.
I think they sold 3 million copies. Got a
Dang.
Grammy nomination,
There's only three of them.
yeah, not bad, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think those were pretty favorable. Those are good publishing splits too. Those guys did just fine
Right.
without, I don't know hard details, but they're all fine.
Everybody got paid something.
That's good. Uh,
Yeah.
I feel we didn't talk about any of the arc of your first band.
For sure. Um, yeah, I could try to sum it up. So we came out of the gates young in high school, kind of a local uh, success story of filling clubs with high school kids. Made the record with Keith Forsey, and we just had a slew of really, really good luck with support slots. We went out with Weezer, we went out with the Strokes, we went out with Pete Yorn, Travis, and the headlining was building up too.
What year were you out with Travis?
Oh, three, maybe. Oh, four, oh, two, somewhere right in there. Our first record.
Did you guys play the Showbox in
We
Seattle?
have played the Showbox a number of times. I don't know if we would have with them because it wasn't long into the record cycle that we would have probably done our own gig at the Showbox. I love that place.
Favorite.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you with the
Okay. I
Showbox.
also grew up going there a lot because my grandfather lived in that pink condo building right across the street at Pike Place Market. That
Really?
yeah, yeah. Um, and one of his neighbors in the building was Lars Ulrich's father, who was featured in that documentary.
Well, I worked my second gig in when I moved to Seattle was working in the Pike Place Market. So I saw a lot of people, a lot of characters down there.
So we stayed out a while on the first record, and then we had some pretty bad problems between record one and two. We lost a lot of momentum. We kind of at that time, I think rock radio and pop radio were like the Strokes and White Stripes and Killers thing was just sort of starting to bubble under, but there was a lot of discussion about like format, which I didn't we never thought about that, you know? And in Europe, by the way, it was not an issue at all. It was like, are you guys rock or pop? It was like, I don't know, we're like Cheap Trick or ELO or the Cars, like, you know,
Right.
however you perceive it is what it is. I don't know what to tell you because it put us on rock festivals and it's like Limp Bizkit and people are like
Always
throwing things
interesting.
at us.
Right?
Yeah, people are throwing things at us because we have long hair. And then on a pop festival, it's like, you know, like diva singers like Jessica Simpson. And they're like, oh, why do they have guitars? It's loud. We're like too heavy for the pop scene and too light for the rock scene. And then classic kind of sophomore mistake, we were into like, oh, we're a tight road band now. We want to make a record on tape, no click, minimal overdubs. Um, our singer didn't want to play rhythm guitar anymore. He was like, why don't we just have a keyboard and a guitar? I'll just be the front man. We got a really cool producer who had done Tony Hoffer. He had done the fourth Supergrass album, and so Life on Other Planets. He did that, and he'd done some Beck and some Air. We went to Sunset Sound, and we were like, yeah, you know, in some kind of 70s fetish fantasy of tape and no editing and no overdubs and weird songs. And we handed it in. The label was like, well, you might as well just change the band name. Like, what happened to like the kind of catchy pop rock band? Like, what? I don't know. What is this? It's a major left turn. Like, we'll respect your creative control if you really want us to put this record out, but why don't you ask like your friends and family and other bands you're friends with? And we handed in the record like before Thanksgiving. And they said, take the rest of the year, the holidays, come back January 1st and say, this is our statement and we really want this record out. And we're like, yeah, fuck us. They're right. We shouldn't put this out. We're kind of like, they're right. We had fun. It was a weird experiment, but
Did you release that record?
no,
Never.
no. And we changed management. And then they're like, well, you just wasted a bunch of money on this record not putting out. So now we're going to hire the producer we want. And we got a guy who is the guy who I won't name, who's the same guy Keith didn't name when he was on. We made that record, and it was like, this is going to be the opposite of your experimental 60s fun time. This is like modern rock radio. We're going to do this by the numbers, you know, and that's when I met Keith, and we did that, and that record just didn't sound like us either. It's like, where are the keyboards? Where are the harmonies? Why is everything fucking triple stacked Mesa Boogie A&R tone, you know?
Right.
And so
Wait a minute. Let me ask you a question. Have
yeah,
you guys entertained putting that second record out at all? Or did any of the material make the glossy record that you did release?
very few songs were re-recorded. It was mostly completely separate material. So it could be put out. I don't know. But that's all. This story is always met with, I bet it was awesome. The one you didn't put out, that was probably the awesome one. I want to hear it. It's like, no, it's why we didn't put out. It's not the awesome one. You don't need to hear it.
Right.
my take on it. So we made this like slick rock record and changed management again. Really poor communication with the label. Then started taking more pop tour support slots, like went out opening for Kelly Clarkson and kind of going more that angle. And the label was like, they got distracted. Basically, we missed the window to do artwork and mastering and shoot a video. And so our release date kind of like wasn't happening for a while. We got a cold email out of nowhere from this producer, John Fields. He says, I get this kind of music. The Beatle guy, Todd Rundgren, Jeff Lynne. When your first record came out, it was like a breath of fresh air. It's the type of thing I'm really into. Why has it been over 2 years or close to 3 years since that record came out? What's up with you guys? Can we meet? And so now we're sitting on 2 finished records that don't have release plans. And without management, label, lawyer, no professional channels at all, we went to John Field's home studio and didn't talk about money, points, nothing. And he's like, play me something that you've written recently that's not on any of these records that have problems attached to them. Like strum a song on a guitar that's new. And he's like, let me just program a beat and put down a pad so you can sing to it. And we cut vocals and we cut the background vocals and we did all this harmony arranging. He's like, all right, pay for 1 day of studio time. We're going to take these finished vocals and work backwards and have the band play under the vocals. He's like, I just need to go somewhere where we can get drum sounds, and don't pay me and don't talk to anybody, manager, label, anything. Just rent a room where we can cut drums and loud guitars. And we went
Right. So there's no outside bullshit business.
We're an unsigned high school band again, and just met a guy who wanted to do us a favor. So we cut the song, he mixes it, and we sent it to a different A&R guy at our label who was not our A&R guy.
Did he know who you were?
Yeah, oh yeah. He knew who we were. He was a fan, but we weren't on his like roster. And he's like, what is this? This is like what you should be doing. This is the continuation after your first record where you're supposed to be going. This sounds like what the second album should be. Where and when did this happen? Who knows about it? What's the situation? And we're like, we've told no one, including our own manager. We just paid a studio day rate. The guy's name was John Fields, and he didn't take any money. And he's like, well, I don't see how either of the two records you just made could possibly stand up to this. So let me find you guys some budget to go do some more stuff with this John guy.
So your second album was your fourth album?
Yes. Yeah. So he like rustled
Way to kick off the cobwebs, buddy.
Yeah. So he rustled up some money that was like not even from our like account at the label, because he didn't even tell our A&R guy. And
right.
We did 4 more songs with John, so we had 5. And then finally managers and labels started talking again. There was like a big meeting to like make sense of all this shit. There's like so many recordings, so much time has passed, so much money has been spent. What the fuck is going on here? So we had this big like conference room meeting with everyone there, and everyone basically said, including like Jimmy Iovine, like the 5 songs these guys did with this Fields character clearly sound like where the band needs to be going, and none of the other shit can really sit beside that shit on a record. It doesn't match, and it's not as good. So what does it cost to do the other half of the album, 5 more songs with John? And that's the record. So we, in a second batch of sessions, did more stuff with John. That came out and did really, really well in Europe. We had a #1 in Germany. And in the States, it was kind of like we could headline clubs, big clubs, maybe a small theater here and there. Europe, about the same. And it was driving Jimmy Iovine nuts. He's like, why aren't we on pop radio? Why isn't it crossing over to top 40? We should be getting the Jonas Brothers demographic. These guys think they're Britpop, indie rock, but they're not. It should be full-blown teeny bopper thing. Why isn't it happening? How could they be #1 in Germany? We can barely get any airplay here. He was getting frustrated, so let's say we were not blackmailed, but strongly made to feel that we had to open for the Jonas Brothers to have any support promoting the record. So we did, and we still didn't get radio ads, and Jonas fans do not give a shit about the opening band, who they, by the way, think are old men because we're 24 or something.
Right.
And they're like, now we'll never open for the Strokes again because we've crossed over to that side. And then the label was like, look, we've tried everything and it's not working, and you're having good success in Europe, so let's just part ways. I don't think it was considered a dropping. It was just sort of like we agreed to not do another record for them. Made a record on our own, produced it ourselves, got a distro deal with Warner Brothers. Original bass player left. We had a guy we hired to tour with us.
Palladino.
yeah. Pino came in, um, and we got a new manager, and it was just sort of like we're not the like major label darlings anymore. We weren't getting along as well. We're, getting a little more competitive about who's gonna lead things, if we're gonna self-produce and songwriting and stuff like that, and wanting more time off to maybe start producing other people or do a solo thing or play sessions or just play music with somebody other than the high school guys.
Right.
And also, I think this 10 years of on the climb, you say yes to everything because you don't know where it's going to stick, and you're young. And when somebody says you're doing something for exposure, that sounds like a positive thing to you. 10 years later, for exposure means for free and probably will amount to nothing.
Right. I
So,
mean, exposure to radiation is a bad thing.
it's right. So we were in the phase where it's like we can go here, 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 and here, have a good time, and we're wanted there, and we have fans, and we can make some money and then go home. Then there's all this other shit that we're being made to feel like we should do,
Right.
but
Because it's a part of a formula that's worked for other people.
yeah. And at that point, it just kind of broke down. And then some internal stuff went pretty bad. And then finally, in the very end, we decided, I don't think it's illegal for me to say, but we made an agreement to sell the band name to the singer, the one member.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So he sat on it for a few years, and I think he put out a little EP, did a little bit of like small club touring with hired guys, and I don't really know what his ambitions are or how much activity it is, but he has the right to do it if he wants. And I'm not really looking over my shoulder to see what's happening, nor do I think it would. I don't know how much value it has if there's not new music or a hit song or an original lineup playing a classic record on its anniversary or any
Right.
outside of any of that. I don't really know what it's worth, but it's been worth enough for me in getting producing work. I've been around long enough now that there are people who like remember those records from their kid brain.
Right.
You know?
Did, did things transition out of the complete band lineup in such a way that you could foresee ever playing with an original lineup
Uh,
again?
no, probably not. I don't foresee that, but
I mean, the Eagles said it, Guns N' Roses said it, I don't,
well,
they,
yeah, if when our ex band name is worth stadium tickets.
right. Then,
I mean, people move on, and like I don't know, I'm happy with my own career and being a grown up and having a family, and
yeah,
3 out of 4 former bandmates are great friends of mine. 2 of them were in my wedding.
yeah.
So I just, but no. And if I were, but if you would ask the question, if I were a betting man, what are the odds that would happen? I'd say slim to none.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
I'm gonna put just $5 on the small odds.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
But also, I
Just in
mean,
case.
staying in music is sort of like, not all the other guys. I mean, the singer, I think he does mostly film stuff, even though he has the band name. The bass player is a dentist in Austin, Texas.
Wow.
The keyboard player is a publisher at Cobalt Music Publishing. And the drummer, when he's not playing Mick Fleetwood in our show,
Yeah.
nurse,
Wow.
a nurse, a dentist, and a publisher. And I'm still sitting back here plugging away at it, be it a film score or TV shows or whatever I can do.
How frequently does that, I mean, it's crazy because 10 years ago, not even 10 years ago. It's Jesus, it's 22 years ago that kind of stuff first came on my radar. Like, oh, you can write little pieces of music and people will license it and use it for this or that, or even your own song, someone might use it in some sort of a web thing. You know, growing up, being a slacker of the 90s,
Hmm.
you know, that was like you just don't do that.
Yeah,
Like, it
totally.
was like, what? You did what? For a commercial? Like,
But yeah, I know what you mean because I came of age in the tail end of that, and like Kurt Cobain was my childhood hero, and the idea of like, yeah, no, I totally get what you
now
mean.
people are lined up like it's the plasma bank. Like, please take my song and
Because
give me
you know why?
$15.
Because those days in the 90s, you kind of had the luxury of having that attitude. Because
Right.
if you could support yourself just doing your main thing you wanted to do, which was have a band and,
Be a
have,
barista.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. If you want the classic barista slash band guy life, it was there for you. But now, I don't know. I think I also just kind of embraced, maybe I had certain friends or mentors that embraced like the craftsmanship of it
Yeah.
and treat it like a job. Like a buddy of mine who we lost early in the pandemic to COVID, Adam Schlesinger from Fountains of Wayne. He was somebody I've really learned a lot from and looked up to. And he was almost like, he was obviously a really good artist, but he was almost embarrassed by the word artist. He thought it was like pretentious. It's like,
Right.
oh, don't call me like songwriter artist. Because like I just get jobs. Like I have to make up some songs for this TV show because that's what they want me to do, and it's a good job. He was very like go to work about it. What does this have to be about? Okay, maybe the title could be this. So maybe a couple you could hang these two lines on that title, which would be your chorus. And then the verses would be like this. And that would probably fit this kind of tempo and this kind of style. So I'm gonna get to work and crank that out and write that song.
I loved that band.
Yeah.
That band that I was telling you about, the Nevada Bachelors, we opened for them in Seattle once. I very drunkenly drilled him about he was just, I'm sure he was super annoyed, though he was very cool about it.
He's so, so nice and so humble. And the thing that took me a minute to figure out when we became friends is he was always talking about how he wanted to do fountains again. He wanted to go on the road. And I'm thinking, this guy, he's writing for film and TV on a high level, big stuff. And he was starting to write for a Broadway show as well. Um, and he doesn't even have to go in and like co-write with baby bands. He just brings finished songs delivered, gets them in movies, gets them on records, gets them in TV shows, gets them in commercials. He was just doing fucking great. Also, like, always had fun investments, like a bar or a restaurant. He always had his hands in things. And I'm sort of thinking, like, I asked him, I'm like, why would you want to go out on a fountains tour? You'll just play sort of like small clubs, be schlepping gear around. You probably like be in a van at
Because
this
it's
point.
fun.
Exactly. And he was like, because I like playing bass in my band. I like my rock band that I play bass in. I want to go do that. It's fun.
Yeah, dude.
It really just impressed me that he wasn't like, I'm Hollywood now.
He
Why would
was
I?
precious.
Yeah. He wasn't like, well, I write for an NBC show 5 days a week. Why the fuck would I go
Why would I get
play?
in a van and drive the
He
fucking?
couldn't wait to. He was dying to. He really wanted Balance to tour again.
Yeah, that was a super fucking drag.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, tough one. Do you know Mike Viola?
I know his name. Who is he?
Singer songwriter guy out here. He came up with Adam and those guys when Fountain started. He's a solo artist now, but I played bass for him, opening on some Fountains gigs. Um, yeah, Fountains are good live band.
Oh yeah, dude. What's
Yeah.
the album with the kid on it? And
Mm,
he's got a cape on and
yeah, yeah, not interstate.
it was a night. I mean, it was an early record. It was before Stacy's mom,
Right, right.
I think. I
The
mean, I
funny
was
thing is like not some hit songs propel a band and some hit songs are just they propel themselves. Like I don't think Fountain's live business changed that much from Stacy's mom.
right.
Obviously airplay and sales, it was a whole new echelon, but I think they were still kind of like a club band.
Yeah, we played with them at a club at the
Yeah,
Crocodile.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, in Seattle, Crocodile?
Yeah,
Yeah. How long did you live in Seattle?
93 to 2015. I was
Yeah.
in Portland for a couple years twice.
So the older than me drummer who from the Fleetwood show and from Rooney grew up in Seattle. And when we first met, I had been such a grunge fan, and he was like there. It's like, oh yeah, I saw Kurt at a house party once. Like, wow.
Uh, what's his name?
Ned Brower.
Ed.
Did you see
Uh,
Nirvana?
what's that?
Did you see Nirvana?
I never saw them, man. But they practiced occasionally at the same practice place where we did at Holt's room. And my friend Kurt Block shared a room with them, and Cobain smashed a guitar up at practice once and just like threw it in the trash.
Right.
And Kurt Block took it and like reassembled it, glued it all back together, and he still has it.
Holy shit.
But it's like it's in a museum now. It's like
Right.
it's one of those sorts of things. It's crazy. Yeah, I was a pretty naive kid. I've told this story before, but we practiced next to Hole, and I didn't know who they were. And that Eric guy, I would
Yeah.
just see him in the hall. He's a very distinctive looking guy. He looks like
The other Kurt.
well, he kind of looks like he could be an Urge Overkill,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like in the dark the the dark alter reality version of Urge Overkill. And I saw him in the market because I saw everyone in the Pike Place market, and I was a real friendly like country kid, and I just said hi to everyone, always. And I saw him, and I was like, "Oh, hey man, I know you. How you doing?" And he was just like, "Oh, fuck," because he's like a rock star already at this point. And I'm like, I see you in my practice space all the time. Like, what band are you in? And he was just like, I don't know if he was embarrassed or if he was annoyed and he thought I was messing. There's all those dynamic
Sure.
elements that can go into answering a question. But I think he realized I was sincere. I don't know. But he was just like,
Probably was refreshed by it.
maybe, yeah. But he was, yeah. Everyone in that space was always really cool.
It's a good sunny day real estate anecdote, maybe to go out on, tie it all together. The Fleetwood Mac tribute band was asked for a quote to play Nate Mendel's birthday party.
Oh, really?
And we I think we overshot and didn't give it. Had we done it, we were going to surprise him at one point, and as Fleetwood Mac like played 7. So,
Oh, that would be incredible.
so weird, or like in circles, or one,
Right.
so weird. I wonder if Dave Grohl would even like recognize that music.
Oh, I'll bet he would.
Yeah,
I mean, those two guys were the first rhythm section.
yeah, yeah.
I saw Sunny Day in '94
Mhm.
at Mo, before it was called Mo Bar. It's called Mo's Mo Rockin' Cafe, which is a stupid name. And it was, oh God, it was so good. That was
Yeah,
a good band.
totally. He could fucking sing.
Dude did you get into the Return of the Frog Queen?
Yeah, yeah. It's weird. It took me a bit. But yeah, so strange his singing approach.
It's really weird. It's almost like, uh, yeah, I don't know. I think he's a character, you know.
Yeah, I wonder what he does now.
I reached out to him to see if he would sing in a
Oh,
Couchress video, and he was cool. He responded and just said, "I'm not really doing any social media stuff, you know."
oh,
Um, but
makes sense.
Nate played bass on a video
Oh, cool,
for Highwayman,
cool.
the classic outlaw country supergroup.
What a what a gig for Nate Mendel to have been a Foo Fighter this long.
Dude, like based from the onset, you know. I saw those guys on the first record,
Yeah,
and a number of times since then. People love to hate on, you know, like snooty hipsters love to hate on Dave Grohl, but that guy's been nothing but fucking cool to me, and
yeah.
he's done me a couple real solids.
Oh,
Like,
really?
yeah. So he's
Where is Will Goldsmith these days?
he lives out on the peninsula. I don't know what he's doing, but I think he's playing a little bit of music. I thought he was living in California, but
About
um
didn't he have an open letter or something, an email that leaked? Isn't his bad blood from that second Foo Fighters record kind of been aired?
I don't know. I
Like
try to
they erased drum tracks or something.
I mean, I know that it probably was a really hard gig for someone to have.
Right.
I wouldn't want to play drums behind Dave Grohl, no matter who I was. I think
What's the best high level arena sideman gig these days? Like, what would you go back out there for? Like, who would?
anything that I'd fucking go out for anything that paid $1,500 a week. You know, but I mean, what's a side gig anymore? It's like
Right.
a band is a band, right? I mean, I don't think. I mean, perhaps for certain gigs, I'm a good enough guitar player, you know, to go out with a pop band, but probably I'm a way better bass player. And I think being a being a smart bass player, there's great opportunity.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I mean, at the moment, I don't think about going out and doing gigs.
Right.
I do think about touring the podcast.
Oh, that's a fun idea.
Listen, what what would this look like? Tell me if this sounds like interesting. You you sell whatever 25 or 50 tickets, and
Yeah.
you're you know I got to beta test this. You do it like at a guitar store maybe or something.
Yeah.
We do this kind of a thing plus a question and answer with an audience. We still record it and film it, so 50 people in Finland can listen or whatever. And
Do you have a big Finnish fan base?
I'm a big finisher. Yeah. And
Okay.
so, um, and then, you know,
Then
yeah.
there's a
And then, yeah, maybe you play a tune or two afterwards and there's some local cats and then, I just drive around in a van. I got no crew. I got no nothing. It's,
yeah, like being a stand-up comic.
oh, what a gig, right? I wish I was funny.
Yeah.
Although you never talk to any super well adjusted comedians, right? They're all like they have this the dark side is the big side.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But they sell those tickets and then there's no production costs and no splitting of with other members.
Here's the thing, like if I ever built something, it would probably be like some sort of like 20-piece funk band that had like 3 conga players
Oh yeah,
and 7 horn players, and I would just
I can't
I
get
would
that.
I would go $100,000 in debt on my first tour, but I
Really.
would come home and be like, that was that was I reached the top of the mountain.
Exactly. That's what would have happened with the play when Live Nation got cold feet because
Right.
there's this whole thing was like, okay, we're gonna do just the West Coast. We're gonna do 6 shows in 6 nights. And if we have all the sets in a trailer and nobody gets a hotel, nobody flies, we can get a bus, we live on the bus, we get the whole, somebody will have to sleep on the back lounge. There's not even enough bunks, but we can do it. And I was like, yeah, what? And like lose 60 grand and none of those promoters will ever have us back because we didn't get a publicist and no one knows what it is. And
Right.
So
at the end of the day, you just got to have fun.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the most fun is coming up with the most ridiculously stupid, fantastic idea that is destined to lose money and totally follow through on it.
Yep.
I think we should do it.
If I can't learn original music, I have an idea for another kind of comedy play with music that I don't need anybody's rights for. A few different ideas in that realm. I have one idea that would need rights, I think, but a show where the classic gray aliens, like the Greys, discover Beatles albums and start a tribute band. So it's like a gray in a Sgt. Pepper's outfit and like little John Lennon granny glasses.
Almost like what was that band from San Francisco? The super fucking maniac art rock band.
Man or Astro Man?
No, before not the Replicants. This is terrible radio. I'll think of it. I'll text you.
I'm with you for having ambition behind ridiculous ideas. I think it keeps the inner child alive.
That's the whole thing. That's exactly it, because it was a preposterous idea to be a professional musician in the first place.
Totally. And when people show up and get a kick out of it, then even better.
Right.
We have in the play, Never Going Back Again is performed on a toilet.
What's that?
In my play, in the Fleetwood Mac play, Never Going Back Again is performed on a toilet. Because Mick calls Lindsay, and Lindsay has a landline in his bathroom now because he's just gotten paid from the album. Right. And it's like, have you written anything new lately? And I play Never Going Back Again on the John, and a set gets rolled out with Lindsay taking a shit, playing Never Going Back Again, and everybody goes crazy. So that's part of the show. But the thing is, we had to construct a bathroom on a riser with walls and wallpaper and wheels and a toilet bowl with a microphone and all this shit. It was like a lot of man hours for the gag to make a fake toilet for fake Lindsey Buckingham to take a fake shit on while playing Never Going Back Again. But
how do you approach your the scene? Do you have your pants down, really?
Yeah, I have like a long kimono, like robe.
Yeah.
With the guitar and then pants around ankles. And it starts off stage and you hear a phone voice filtered, and then I get rolled out playing the song.
This is amazing. I can't wait till, you know what?
Yeah.
I got is there a website?
Not for we don't have any clips up. We've tried the EPK thing, but it's it's theater. Everything that works about it makes it not work on video.
Right.
It just it reads in person as charmingly homemade, and on video reads like full amateur high school.
Right.
There's something about filming a stage show that just makes it doesn't look good at all.
Right.
It's not because it's an iPhone. We've rented in a real camera, but still you see the backs of people's heads, and one light catches some glare, and it's all of a sudden just a shit fest,
I'll bet if you get a red camera, 5 red cameras, and go down the arc of gear thing that you're
yeah, totally, and go back to the iPhone at the end. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. It totally like, should we borrow my friend's nice camera for this shoot? It's like, fuck it, iPhone.
Right.
So,
It's still a drum riser, a rolling drum riser with a fake bathroom on it.
right. So give me the JCM 900 and I'll plug into the effect return, because the like good deluxe reverb that happens to be like a vintage one is like, they want me to turn it all the way down to like 1 anyway. So fuck it.
So wait a minute. When you had this set, I promise I'm going to let you go have dinner.
Okay.
When you were doing the show,
Yeah.
you were at Largo?
Where do we store it?
Yeah. Did you have it built so that it was collapsible?
Yeah, things collapsed. And we did have a little storage unit, and we had to rent a U-Haul every time. I mean, and I've not been in a play in my life. I've not seen a legit musical in my life. It was like punk rock theater. I thought of it more like Mr. Show, like a sketch comedy show.
Right.
I know nothing about real theater. I started to when we were being approached by agents. I was like, maybe I should like see if I can play. So I wrote one by accident. Maybe I should like know what theater is. But yeah, it's like an all-day thing in Largo. We're always like begging to get in a little bit earlier in the day, because their whole format is like mic'd up almost the way you'd mic like bluegrass. Like everyone just shares a condenser. Sound the monitors are sort of like the same as what's in the house, just like a little blend of everything. It's a very, very acoustic-y kind of place. And we're like, can we get in really early, because we have to steam costumes that are wrinkled in the truck, and like tune 13 guitars and run through cues and shit, It's fun though, because it feels like a ridiculous kid idea that you followed through. We didn't hire anybody like from a professional theater background. Like all of our stage managing and roadieing are all just like friends of ours who wanted to be involved and also play 3 characters in it.
Right.
You know.
So there are plans to make that happen again when
Largo opens. I'm sure we'll try to get back on their calendar. And in terms of an ambition to, I don't know, at this point, I think of it more like Largo's audiences and other performers are just such a great group of people in the music and comedy world that if it's not this show, at least it's showcasing something silly and original and weird. And I mean, I always say like everything I know how to do is in that hour and a half. So if you need a guitar player, a singer, a writer, somebody funny, somebody like any clowning or song and dance shit that you might need me for, just that's my reel. Like
find you on Fiverr.
Yeah, exactly. So if that means like, I mean, at one point Jeff Garland was like, I'm gonna get you on Curb Your Enthusiasm. And I was like, all right, I'm not gonna hold my breath. And a good thing I didn't, because obviously I'm not on Curb Your Enthusiasm. But
right.
The fact that somebody like him would be around and wanna, get to know me because of this weird show with a fake toilet in it.
Does he play guitar?
He collects, and he refuses to let you hear him play.
He's a guitar owner.
Yeah, he has some good shit though. He has a 56 custom, the black with the P90 and
the staple pickups, the staple 90s. Yeah,
one of those. He has a nice 330. He's a guitar guy.
Yeah,
he's into it. He like when he's not performing, he exclusively wears Wilco t-shirts.
So he's into he's into at least some relatively cool shit.
Yeah, he's a rocker. He's into fucking old guitars and shit. He's funny. He's great. He would do a narration for us if we asked him. He loves it. Also, I heard his laugh before I was introduced to him, like during the show.
You're like
fucking Jeff Garland was out there.
Right.
See, he was just he's distinctive. But it's just fun being around Largo because somebody like Jeff Tweedy from Wilco or Neil Finn or Mike Campbell or They're all around. So just like hanging out, it's different from anywhere else. It's just kind of special. And to be able to say, like, we took a kind of cockamamie, stupid idea and wrote it in a really irreverent, unconventional, like weird way, and then got on the calendar and then stayed on it and did a residency. Um, you know,
You
it's,
have
it's
to at least consider the possibility that Lindsey Buckingham could show up to see the show at
yeah,
some
he's
point.
aware of it. He's aware of it.
Do you
Uh,
think you would be too nervous to?
that I would be. I think I would really clown it up. I think I would probably have a couple too many drinks to calm my nerves and then really go to town on it.
Right.
Um, there's one scene that's like modern day Lindsay, where I have the gray wig on an exercise bike with a Bluetooth. And I just would love him to see that more than even like playing his guitar parts. Would be moments like that, you know. He's so our drummer saw him at a museum in LA and just walked right up to him and said, uh, I'm sure you get bothered by fans all the time, but my approach is so unusual that I couldn't not approach you. I'm one of the performers in the Largo comedy show about Fleetwood Mac. My partner plays you in it, and we wrote it and produced it, and you'd be our guest of honor if you ever wanted to see it. And he was like, I have heard about the show. It sounds very esoteric. I don't know why someone would want to do the show, but yeah, okay, maybe I'll get down there one of these days. Yeah. So he was aware of it.
This is amazing. You know what? First flight I take,
Yeah.
I'm LA bound.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to recording the next bit of this, and I really appreciate you having me on. To everybody in Finland,
Yes.
you can find me in all the usual places, whatever, Spotify, Instagram, all that, and yeah.
I'll link to your website and your music in the description of the podcast.
Cool. I have an EP that was just out called The Bitter End. I'm going to have another one in a couple of months.
Great.
Uh, the play is called Don't Stop the Musical. And the event is called Rumors, the Ultimate Fleetwood Mac Tribute Show. And I don't have anything else to plug right now. I'm just hanging out at home with a 4-month-old baby scoring a horror movie.
Is that what it is? Is a horror movie that you're?
And it's all, the director is into like lead fuzz bass. Like all the main themes are bass.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah. He's like, the more just like Hofner high on the neck fuzz, do everything there.
There are some distinctive soundtracks that feature this absolute exact element.
Yeah.
And if you're not paying attention, it goes right by you.
Yeah. And it's like, I would put that kind of thing down as a jumping off point to orchestrate stuff over it. And he would be like, the stuff's awesome. It's really beautiful, but it might be too much to be going on behind the dialogue. Can you send that without like any of the mid-range instruments? I'm like, okay.
That fuzz bass.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, more of that. Just make them all like that now. All the cues.
Tension.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking great.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you so much for. I know I took a lot more of your time than I said I was going to.
Edit it down, or
I'm not editing shit.
Okay, fuck it. When you see how many, when you see how many listeners you have, does it show you if they made it to the end of the episode?
On the podcast, no, but I can tell you that when I can break down and look at the stats in different ways. The longer a podcast is, generally speaking, the more listens it gets, which is crazy to me.
Cool.
So take that however you like.
Yeah. Well, we got a longie. So thanks again, man.
I had a great time talking, man. Thank you again.
Likewise.
Have a good weekend. And I'll be sending you some stems as soon as I can.
Looking forward to it. And I'll send you this audio.
Awesome, man. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye.
Take it easy.